So this is standing on my patio near my sliding glass door, and what I look out to, which is a tremendous difference from when I first moved in. I'll show you along the patio line. The original owners, they didn't want any yard maintenance. So when they put the patio in, they left, I don't even know if it's 18 inches, I'll show you, in between the fence and the patio as far as planting area. That has been a challenge for me because, as you all know after watching my videos, I like to plant plants and it's very limited. So over here in this corner, this shrub is a xylosma shrub. And when I moved in, it was probably a foot tall, and it was one of the only things still alive in this area. So I went ahead and continued to prune on it. Otherwise, it'd probably fill in this entire area in this corner. So I try to maintain it to just give me some evergreen interest in here. And then I've let it grow up, and I try to shape that at the top as well. In this area below the trellis, behind the little fence, I have dwarf myrtle, and these don't get quite enough sun to provide blossoms or blooms on those shrubs, and they don't get berries either. Over at my mom's house, hers get plenty of sun, so she gets a lot of berries and a lot of blossoms on hers. But unfortunately, I can't find much to plant in that little narrow space. Then I have along here just some extra plants that I've potted up, that several of them are going to go into the garden beds when I find a location for them. The fountain is a non-functioning fountain, so I've tried multiple types of succulents in here, and I haven't had a huge amount of luck with them growing well in there or filling in, but I keep trying. And underneath now, this is one of my happier succulents, and that had only a few little starters in it, and it has filled in, and basically it has been maintenance free, and I really enjoy that. I have in here a few obelisk along with the little fence. That is an attempt to keep my little dogs out, and also all of my neighbors have fur babies and they like to bark at each other through the fence. So I place a few things in here to hopefully keep her or detour her from jumping over in there and destroying everything. Along this fence line, I also have another very narrow planter.
And since it is so narrow and a very shady space, I decided to plant a drift of hydrangeas. I have it planted in another spot in the garden and it does very well, so I am hopeful that it will fill in nicely.
This area has another metal trellis arch underneath of it. This bower vine was here when I moved in, and it was pretty small, and I'm fortunate that the neighbors really like it, so they're allowing it to grow, and this provides some evergreen interest as well as some blossoms. I'll show you the blossoms. I happen to have a few blooms on there right now. I have a lot fewer flowers since I added the patio cover in, and it shades it, so these do need a lot more sun if you want it to fully flower all over. But it does provide a lot of green in this area and soften up the area, which I appreciate. So in addition to the big tall arch piece that I have under there, I also bought a smaller square trellis to add here so I could bring the greenery along the fence line. Over here by the sliding glass door, I have a plant stand, and I have a little bird bath over here that I don't run too often during this time of the year, but it is a fun thing to hear the water feature out here. And when the weather is super hot, the little birds are attracted into this area to use the water fountain. On the plant stand, I have a couple different things growing here. I have a goldfish plant. You can see the little blossoms on it, that they're little bellies, or it looks like a little goldfish belly shape of it. It's super pretty. Underneath I have this fern growing down in here. a jade plant, and a couple other succulents that I'm not familiar with the names of them. This ruby slipper here is a lot of work. I'm not sure I'm super thrilled with having it. It's always getting some kind of little funk on it that I am always spraying with alcohol. Now we can take a walk over into the area that was the first focus in my yard. What I did first in my yard is I had along this line, probably where the base of the podocarpus are in, it was a concrete edge border. And I took out that concrete edge border, planted the podocarpus, and you can see that this podocarpus on this side has done the best. The only thing I can attribute that to is the amount of water it was getting. As you go down the line, podocarpus like a lot of sun. The sun from those is about equal, but they get smaller as they go down the line. Then in between each of the podocarpus, I found some matching planters, which I've planted up with hydrangeas. And 3 of them, I believe, are the same type of hydrangea. I'd have to look up and see what I have there. I just noticed on this hydrangea, here we are, we're in the month of December, but I have a blossom on here. And this one actually is supposed to be a blue color, so I'm going to have to put the fertilizer in it that I need to keep it the blue tone or just allow it to stay the pink. But all of the hydrangeas along this little section get quite a bit of shade from the borrowed neighbor's olive tree. And then this one over here, which I relocated recently, hopefully it will tolerate more sun because it does get more sun from up in this area. And the one I had planted there previously did not do well with the amount of sun that it was getting. So this will be a little trial over here to see how this one does. And if you stand at my back fence and you span over here, I have planted a barberry, and the color in the fall is just gorgeous. They have prickly thorns on them, but I think the little bit of thorn with the color that it provides throughout the year is totally worth it. Below the barberry, I had in here for a while Swan River daisies. It was full in there and looked super pretty. I loved it, but those have all succumbed to some powdery mildew. Then I tried to get some Brunnera, and within weeks of planting it and even putting stuff down here, it looks like the bugs have just munched on them. They look like little Halloween plants now, little skeletons. So I'm hoping that they will survive the winter and I can trim them back and some new greenery will flush out. I've recently added a couple boxwood in here to provide some evergreen interest. And I've also planted in here some dwarf mondo grass. And these have grown in really nice. They were super tiny when I got them, and I just thought they would be really pretty in front of the Brunnera. So as sad as those look, I have hope for them. I always like to have a little bit of grass in this area, which it was nice and lush before. I just feel like the little bit of grass helps the eye rest with as much as I like to plant and all the plants that I have going on. Over in this area, I have a licorice plant. This area hasn't gotten any attention from me for months. And this I will actually prune back and it will reflush out in the spring. And then in the back, I have some, I think it's called hot lips sage. This area, actually, I struggled with finding something that could tolerate the full sun and fill in the area that wouldn't go above my window. So it's filled in. However, it's gotten a little crazy and too wild and full for me, so I'm already thinking about what I could do in lieu of that, and that's probably going to get removed. I have, which you wouldn't even know it, these adorable little Marguerite daisies. There's one here that's exposed, but there's a couple of them that have been buried back in there. So like I mentioned, all of this along here was beautiful sod along with the other side. But as you noticed, I do have two little fur babies, and unfortunately after time, they just do a number on the lawn. So I'm hoping this spring to either tear that up and put some new sod in there or block it off and reseed it. I'm just not sure what I want to do yet. This is fun. This is Oxilla, and I have it in the pot here. It only dies out a little bit during the summer, and then it recovers and it gets the prettiest little tiny pink blooms on it. It doesn't have any blooms on it right now. Usually the blooms are in the spring, but I enjoy the greenery that this provides. Right here I have, just on hold for a while, another bargain price boxwood that I got that may go out in the front yard. Then you walk back over here in my garden, and I wanted to play with the idea of having a little small cut flower garden. So I added this no dig type fence through here to keep my little puppies out and not get into them, dig them out, or one of them just loves the fertilizer that I use in the ground. So I needed something to keep them out of the area and not get into those things. So that's what I put in place. Below that, I took the bender board that was out front around my lawn out because I didn't like it. It was kind of a hassle mowing around it. So I cut those in strips and I laid them back here to give myself a little path through here so I could work in the area. So back here during the spring, I did have cut flowers growing back here, and they just didn't grow in the, what do I want to say, all at the times that I needed them to make the bouquets. They were all kind of off, so I couldn't group them together. So many of them were not used as a mixed bouquet because the timing of their blooms just didn't work out. I don't know if it was the weather or the amount of sun back here. I just wasn't sure. So it didn't work out the way I hoped it would have. So in the meantime, because I spend way too much time at the plant stores, I have collected some plants, and what I do is keep them back in here, and they have little drip lines going to them to keep them watered, so I can hopefully keep them happy and use them in the landscape as soon as I find a place for them. Right here I have a lilac tree that I'm super happy. It doesn't look like much right now, but it is surviving the elements in this backyard. I had one planted out in the front yard that was a different variety, and it was a shrub, and I lost it, and I was super sad because it just has childhood memories, and I really wanted a lilac tree. So I'm hoping it provides me more blooms this spring. It is a reblooming one from Proven Winners. One of my favorites are the golf balls or beach balls. I think I have both varieties. I'm not sure which one this is, but I just love how maintenance free they are, and the evergreen. They are a little bit tender though if animals trample through them, which Miss Emmy Lou has done. Over here to the right is my jacaranda shrub, which I totally love. It's one of my favorite things in the garden. It gets tubular purple style flowers, and I think my favorite thing about it is it looks so much like a fern, and it's semi-evergreen, so it dies back a little bit. It will drop some things. It's sort of messy, I don't know. And the purpose for planting this here was to hide the AC unit when you're on this side of the garden, and it's done a good job. It's been in the ground for probably 4 or 5 years to get to the height that it has gotten. It's about 9 foot tall, and that was my plan when I planted it there. Down beneath, this whole area was set up for a cut flower garden, and it was filled with phlox and celosia. And I am on the east side of the yard, looking over to my patio. I've only had the patio cover for a couple seasons, and I've enjoyed that since it gets so hot back here. But look at the color. I just think the color back here is gorgeous. Above that, the tree that I put in the middle here, that is a white crepe myrtle, and it gets gorgeous white flowers. The pollinators love it. It's always full of bees, and you can hear the buzzing sound when you're in the backyard. And I just enjoy the different colors that it provides back here. It's super pretty. I think my two little fur babies want their dinner, but they have to hold out for a certain time since my one little guy, Opie in the white, has diabetes. So he is on a clock as far as his feeding time.
Well, that does it for a tour of my backyard garden. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks so much for watching. Happy gardening!